Hello and welcome to another video. So in today's video, we're going to kind of have a look today at, the internal war that most of us have got going inside of us almost every single time. And, it almost seems as if, there's two sides of us, right? There's a side who craves order and there's a side who craves chaos. And, most of the time, we go through life and sometimes it feels like it's a really like steep uphill battle, and then we get to a point and it feels like, okay, cool, it's like free rolling, right? Like freewheeling, and everything is going okay. And then we get to another point at the bottom, and all of a sudden it feels like we have to like put in a lot of energy and effort and stuff into trying to make things work again. And it gets to a point where everything flips and it's like, okay, cool, like I can breathe a bit, right? So I'm gonna draw it out here for us. Okay, let's get another color. And guys, this is kind of how it works, right? So there's a side of us that craves, let's say order, and everything's going good, and then it gets to a point and everything flips, okay, and it comes down, and then everything goes good again. And we get here to the top, and then it's as if everything, kind of like flips again. And then everything's going well again. And then it gets to this point of where we, like start to see the opposite thing happen again. And it kind of feels like we're riding this wave, right? This giant sine wave that's going on in our life. And the thing about this principle is it shows up in absolutely everything and every point in life, right? So we'll have like periods of here at the top where everything is going good, and we'll have like these dips and these troughs where everything, it seems like it's the end of the world, and it's really, really shit. So let's fill this in here for us. And most of the time, we're busy oscillating between, these 2 points. And then you might ask yourself the question, okay, but then, over a long enough period of time, where do I spend the average time? And that is this blue line over here, right? So in the blue line, we kind of have this average or this mean, right? Statistically speaking, it's called the mean. And we have this regression to a mean every single time, right? So for example, let's say, you're bodybuilding and you're fluctuating between weights, right? You might get to a point over here where you are like, let's say you have a goal of like 90 kilos, right? You eat until you get to 90 kilos. And then all of a sudden you think to yourself, okay, fine, like, I'm looking too bulky, too bloated and stuff. I want to look more cut and ripped, right? So you'll start, changing up your diet. You won't eat as much, carbs, you'll eat lean, you'll drink a lot of water, and you'll fast, and you'll reduce your calories, and you'll work even harder, and then you'll go down, and you'll get to a point of like, let's say 78 kilos, okay? And over here, you're really shredded, you're ripped, muscle definition, and all that stuff. You might look at yourself in the mirror and you might think, oh, I don't feel like I was as big as I was when I was 90. So you'll kind of go back up to that point, right? So you'll start eating, and then you'll get back to like, let's say, this time maybe you're 91, and then you might be like, oh, damn, right? And you're going to kind of go down again, and you're going to kind of fluctuate between these two weights. And you can even see this with finances, right? So you might even get to a point where, let's say, you're trying to save money, and you might save your money, okay? So like you get to a point where you're starting to save, and you get to like, let's say 10K, okay? Let's do it in a way that everyone can understand. 10K, okay? And that's all good and well, but when you finally reach that mark, you might look at your bank balance and think to yourself, I've been putting in a lot of time, a lot of effort into making this money. I work hard, I've been saving, and then you kind of like relax, okay? And because you've kind of taken it to the extreme, right? You went through a period of extreme saving. So now the opposite happens, because anything taken to its extreme flips and becomes opposite, right? So that now you go into a period of extreme spending, and you start spending all your money and all the money that you've saved, right? And you might come all the way down over here, down, and then you might be on like, let's say 1K. And then when you reach this point, right, you look at your bank balance and you kind of get a shock. You're like, fuck. And you start like working, right? You're like, I can't spend anymore. And you'll work as hell not to breach this 1K. And that's the funny thing about life, right? Because, we won't achieve the highest like standards that we set for ourselves, but we'll fight as like it's nobody's business. We'll fight like hell not to breach, our hygiene standard, for example, like the lowest version of ourselves that we can kind of tolerate. So in this case, it's like 1K, and we'll work as hard as hell not to go below that mark. And then we'll kind of like take it all the way up here again, right? And again, now we at like, let's say 9.5K, or we back up to 10K. And we kind of get relaxed again, right? And then you see this happen again, and you come back down here to like 1,000, right? And you kind of like see this happening, and over a long enough period of time, right? Because averages only present themselves over a long enough period of time. It's not 30 days, like let's say like 90 days, right? Anywhere between 90 or 30 and 90 days, you can quite accurately gauge where your comfort level is, on these graphs. And that might be like, let's say this average, between the two is like 5K, let's say, okay? Or like 5.5 thousand. So really what we see here is when we look at our bank balance over that period of time, we'll see that we're mostly at the 5K mark, okay? And that's just the law of averages, right? That's why we also have this regression to the mean going on in our life. And you have this throughout your life. And the thing is, most people want to address this, okay? And it's also good to kind of like map this out, because if you map out these patterns in your life, so you can take a pen and paper and you can draw the same graphs and leave yourself some space at the top and at the bottom. And what you should try and do is you should try and identify these points in your life, because what you measure, you can improve, right? And the goal is to not manage the tops, right? Most of our progress in life comes from us managing our dips and the bottom. And the thing is, what we want to do is we want to make sure, that we're kind of constantly raising this thing. So when you kind of identify that, okay, it's 1K, it's now not a big behavioral change. Most people go wrong, okay, because they try to change, okay, the behavior. That's a you, okay, behavior. But the right way, okay, is not to change the behavior, okay, but it's to change your mindset, okay, around this entire thing. This is not a behavioral problem. This is psychological, okay? Everything here at the bottom, this is psychological. These are all psychological problems that we have, okay? And it starts with the psychology, the mentality around the stuff. Once you kind of get your head around things and you kind of like see where your dips and stuff are, now you can start working on your mindset in those specific areas, right? So maybe you want to increase your savings, and now you need to start working on your mindset, because really, like, wealth creation comes in 3 steps, right? You have 3 different types over here, right? So it's not just about making money. You have the creation, okay? Then you have the multiplication. And then after you've created and multiplied your money, you need to then preserve it, right? And it's a preservation of money. And all of these, it's different mindsets, okay? It's not the same mindset. The mindset that got you to make money is not going to be the mindset that gets you to multiply the money, and it's not going to be the mindset that gets you to preserve your money, right? It's all 3 different types of mindsets. And essentially what you want to do is, like, every time you raise the ceiling, you're bringing the roof with you, right? So or you're bringing the floor with you, right? So you're raising your ceiling, but you have to bring the bottom up as well. It doesn't help you go from like 100K to 1K. So that will never happen, right? So you might be on like 100K savings, and you might drop back down to like, let's say 50 or 60K. And essentially all you want to do is you want to kind of like evaluate that these things are in line with your end goal, for example. So like 10K, maybe you want your savings as 100K. But then that means you can't be spending all the way down to 1,000, right? So you have to kind of like raise this temperature. And there's a great book, I think it's called Release Your Brakes. And the guy kind of like talks about this thermostat, right? Like, it's basically this principle. we will, raise our temperature up to a point, and, like it just, our thermostat regulates and it kind of like pulls it back down. And then when it gets too cold, it kind of like raises the temperature again, right? And there's a cool diagram that the guy draws. And this kind of like embodies that principle. And it's a great book. I definitely recommend reading it. It's called Release Your Brakes. Kind of goes over how we go through life with the brakes on. And I just thought I'd pop on here, and it always just just explain the concept to you, right? Because it feels like we have these two sides to us. And this is really why it feels that way. Okay, I'm not going to get too much into the psychological side of it within this video. But I mean, you have yourself and your shadow self, right? And when you're doing extremely well, it's almost as if the shadow self takes over and tries to self-sabotage you. And then you kind of consciously gain control over your character again, and you kind of bring it back up, and then subconsciously, the shadow self comes in and kind of like screws you up. And I think it was Freud who kind of like spoke about the shadow self and how you must kind of address that, right? Because going through life with anchors holding you back, like you have these energetic anchors holding you back. And I just thought I'd pop on here and kind of like explain why it feels like we've got this internal war going on. And really, at the end of the day, it comes back down to, this diagram and how we kind of perceive the things in our life. And you'll see this happen with diet. Okay, you might get extreme periods of where you're extremely healthy, and it gets to the point because you went through a period of extreme health. Now you're going to go through a dip of extreme unhealth, right? And you're going to eat like shit and eat a lot of cakes and eat a lot of stuff, right? Or maybe you used to drink a lot and you like stop, and you're kind of like putting it off, and you're kind of like pushing yourself not to drink, and then you get to a point where you have like one drink, and then all of a sudden you go overboard and off the rails, and cheat on your spouse and blah blah blah, and it feels like your life's falling apart because you like have to kind of like address the dark side. Because when you spend too much time in the light, you have to address the dark side, and it shows up in relationships. You have relationships that kind of go between these 2 points. You have this in your finances, you have this with your health, and honestly, you have this in your work, in your business, and the list goes on and on. So that's been it for this video, guys. I think that you kind of get the concept now. So I hope that makes a lot of sense. Let me know down below what you think, and I will catch you in another video. Till then, bye bye.